If you want to know how we got from here to here, well, let me show you. I picked up this go-kart off of Facebook Marketplace for a couple $100, and it was in some serious need of some TLC. It was a rolling chassis, and it had a motor that started, so it was a good base for what I needed. A little bit small, but I figured I could work with it. So I started to disassemble it. I got it up onto my Fireball welding table, and I knew I needed to get this thing stripped down. I didn't need the big tires. I didn't need the big seat. I didn't need all the crap that was already on this thing. So I stripped this thing down to bare bones and got it to basically what I needed. Cut it off some frames, pulled off the steering, took the steering wheel off, all the stuff I knew I didn't need. I took the axle out. It was a little bit bent. The brakes were shot, and I just had a pile of shit in the end. But I figured with a little bit of love and a little TLC and a little help from one of my friends, I could get this thing going. I got some parts off of Amazon and realized I had no idea what the hell I was doing. I figured if I got some parts together and got this thing to kind of work, I'd be in pretty good shape. But at this point, I knew I was getting a little bit in over my head, so I knew I needed to get it to somebody who could help me. So I took the frame, loaded it up into my truck, and off to New Hampshire I went. Up there, my buddy Dave, he's a lot smarter than I am, and he knows how to put this shit together. So I brought up the frame, brought up what I had. We got some tires, we threw them on it. So now we had something that rolled, but I still didn't fit in it, and I needed this thing to stop. So Dave got to work. He built a bracket for the disc brakes, got that welded on, and we fired this thing up for the first time, and what do you know? It ran. But I didn't have time to claim this as a victory. I was off to Baltimore, and I was heading to my buddy Chris' shop to see what he could do to help me out as far as making a boot. I had a cart, but no boot.
I need this boot made into a cart. Can you do it?
Sure.
Okay, let's do it.
I've always said thank God for smart people, and Chris is one of those people. He took a 3D model of the boot, he sliced it up a little bit so he could get certain pieces of it, and then he imported it into this 5-axis foam cutter, and he cut out a model of the sole of the boot. We tried it on the go-kart to see how it fit, and we didn't like the size of it, so we cut out a second one where it was just the outline and it fit on the go-kart properly, and we really got to see how this thing was going to land on the go-kart, where the wheels were and everything, and it just was a great fit. So then Chris took the 3D model, he sliced it up and imported it into his 3D printers. These things are amazing. They're about 6x6x5. They're resin printers with a UV light that cures the resin instantly, and you end up with these huge parts of a boot. We made 15 to 16 pieces, released them with this water, and we tried it out, and this thing fit, well, like a boot, I guess. It was amazing to see this thing come together, and we glued the pieces together with some of the resin, cured it with the UV light, and this is just holding it together temporarily. This isn't the finished product. The detail on this thing was amazing. The texture of the leather, the stitching, you could see it all. We had to move it out of his shop. It was just getting way too big, and I went to work assembling all these blocks together. It was a ton of work. I got the base down, and I was starting to see where it was going, and I was super happy with it. I was posting on Instagram that it was a piece of cake to do this, but it was a ton of work. When I got to this point and I seen the magnitude and the height of this thing, I was realizing this was going to be a big boot, and honestly, I was getting a little bit nervous. But I kept plugging along and just kept going with it. We had a little mishap here with this one piece, but other than that, everything went fairly straightforward. I kept putting these pieces on, and this thing kept getting taller and taller, and it was about at this point here I realized I was a little bit in over my head. So we brought it to his other shop across the way, and I got a little bit of help from his workers, and they did in a couple hours what took me a couple days to get done. We all just kind of went at it and glued this thing together, and it was just amazing to see this thing come together and really see the magnitude of this boot. It was just beautiful. Everybody was super excited at this point, but we still were not done. We had to bring it to another shop where he has this 2-part spray system that sprays like a truck bed liner on it, and this thing makes it rock solid. Then we cut out the inside. This is all the internal supports to it, and this was kind of fun because we got to break them all out. It was like breaking glass. It was super fragile inside. Then we brought it back into the booth. We sprayed another coat of the undercoating on the inside to really firm this thing up. You can see all the support that was inside this thing, and it was just a great process to be a part of. Chris's guys were nice enough to prime this for me, so at this point it was ready for paint and ready to head back home. But we still had to load it, and this thing was getting big and it was getting heavy. We put it on the back of my truck, secured it down, and we got some great drone footage from Chris's video guy. And then I was off back home, and I tell you, people were stopping everywhere to see this thing. Every rest stop I stopped at to get gas or coffee, everybody wanted to take a picture. It trailered, well, it didn't trailer, it was on the back of my truck, but it was just really great. I finally made it back to Boston. It was still in one piece, and I was super excited. But back up to Dave's, it still needed a lot of work before it was going to be a go-kart. I spent the day painting this thing. I put a coat of brown paint on it, and I had to tint it to make it look more like leather. And it just was a lot of work. It was a beautiful day, and I just spent the day painting this thing and having a lot of fun with it. It has like 3 different tints of brown on it, and a lot of detail went into this thing, and I was just really, really enjoying this day. It was just a really good break from building the go-kart and all the assembling of the boot. I ended up going a little crazy with the sole because I just wanted to look really like a boot, and I think I kind of achieved that. It was really happy with the color. This is what it looked like on the inside. On the outside, it looked like a boot. I was super happy with this thing and realized at this point I still had a long way to go, but took a moment. Dave was trying to figure out how we're going to mount this boot to the go-kart. He came out with this brilliant idea of fabricating a hinge and a bracket. And this thing was made to look like a funny car with a boot tipped back, and we had plenty of room to get in and out. But Dave wanted to build a seat pan. He just wanted to make more work for this thing at every turn. I welded the seat pan in, and he still wasn't happy. So now he needed to make a battery box. Once we had the battery box built, I welded it in, and we were just about ready to go for another test ride. We had a boot on a go-kart. It was fun to see it go, but I realized I needed to get this thing to upstate New York and to Jimmy's race. So off we were again. And when I got to Jimmy's, I put some final touches on it. The American flag, this Double H boot's made in the USA. And of course, every car needs a license plate. So we put the Double H license plate on there. Now this thing was ready to be off to the races. One more trip on a trailer to Jimmy's track. We got there in one piece, and I tell you, I was just happy to finally arrive. We got this thing unloaded. Once at the track, I hooked the exhaust up to make sure nobody was going to die from carbon monoxide poisoning. And once that was hooked up, I was ready to take it for a run.
Leave your ass in there. Your feet clear?
Yep, I'm in.
You in?
Derek, how are we going to know that if you need help?
Because I'll shut it off.
Okay.
So right there's the secret on how I was seeing. I had a camera mounted to the front, and I had a monitor inside the boot. It wasn't the best system, but it was the best I could think of at the time. I was able to make it around the track a couple times. It was a little bit nerve-wracking. It was a little bit tight, but at the end of the day, it was a lot of fun. Took it for a few laps. I parked it next to Jimmy's, who's looked amazing, by the way. And Jackman, in Jackman style, he was over the top. This was a little video of us just ripping around the track, having some fun. At this point, I knew this kart was too tight for me to be in. There was only one person I could think of that was small enough to fit in there. Yep, you guessed it, Graz. He took this thing ripping around the track like it was nobody's business. It was the perfect size. I tell you, Graz, you're a lucky man.
Who's that? There he is.
I'm good.
Derek! Oh, he cut his hand, you poor bastard.
Oh, did I?
Here's a quick look at the inside of the boot. This steering wheel by Chris came out amazing. Look at that thing. But the secret weapon was this camera. It was hooked up to a monitor up inside the boot that allowed me to see. It worked as good as it could. The boot came out amazing. Had the American flag on the side. Double H boot in Carolina. Thank you.